Verity. I thought I'd have a bit of a chat to you about a commercial property that I'm selling at the moment. And so we're just at the final stages where we're collecting all our offers. We actually, you probably already know, based on my other videos, I'm not a big fan of auctions. And so I think they're pretty limited as far as the way they're trying to sell a property. I think it excludes a lot of people and actually potentially allows you to miss out on some opportunities that might not otherwise, be available. And so it opens it up to people that aren't subject to any, basically auctions are saying it's cash unconditional, so people can't be subject to finance or there can't be any terms and all that sort of stuff. Particularly in the world of commercial, terms and conditions and trying to take someone's personal situation into account is really important, especially when you're talking about a property that's, multi-million-dollar property. Then sometimes people don't have, the cash sitting in the bank, or sometimes they want to negotiate something with the owner that's going to be better outcome for the owner or better outcome for them, or a mixture between the two. So I thought I'd have a chat to you about a conversation that I had with a potential purchaser. They came and put an offer in, and they put an initial offer in at the start. Their offer was, to be honest, was a bit off where the asking, what we were hoping to get offers at. And so, but then they came back to, hey Asley, thanks for joining. And then they came back and said, well, what if I put some conditions in the offer? Saying subject to, could be anything, to be honest. In this commercial situation, because there was a lease in place, they wanted to know a lot more information about the tenant in the property. So they wanted to really know whether that tenant was going to hang around for the long term. So, they wanted to know about their financial affairs. They wanted to try and have more conditions on the tenant, to be honest, to make sure that tenant wasn't going to be leaving. And you can imagine if you're buying a commercial property, then majority of the reason you're buying it is for a long-term investment and for rental return, and obviously capital gains along the way, but mainly they want to focus on the rental return. And so if you have a tenant in there that's really secure, then obviously it's increasing the value of what the property would otherwise be. Obviously if the tenant's not so secure, and if they move out, then suddenly that property which you thought was quite valuable isn't so valuable anymore because you're not earning the rent that you otherwise would be. So I can understand why the purchaser wanted to know whether the tenant was open to giving more information about their situation. But I suppose what I thought I'd explain to you and explain to them, what they came back is they said, hey, would they be open to putting conditions on there that I can actually see the financial affairs of the tenant? I said to them, hey, well, maybe we could go back and look at that option. What I suggest to you is you put a condition in your offer saying I'd like to know more information about the tenant and I'd like them to give me their financial accounts so that I can see whether they're a secure tenant or not. And so, which is fine. Their response to me, though, was, no, I don't want to put in an offer until I know whether they're going to accept my condition. And I suppose this is what I want to explain to you, and I wanted to explain to them at the time too, is that conditions and your offer collectively make up your total offer, really, because, you can put an offer at a price, but you have a condition that you're not going to pay for 100 years, then, really, that person's not going to get any money. So conditions can be such things as, when the property is going to settle, what sort of deposit you're going to pay, is it subject to finance, is it subject to a sale of a property, is it subject to, all those things I talked about. You can basically make up any condition you want, but obviously the determining point of whether the owner wants to accept your condition is how much you're actually going to offer. The more conditions you put in there, the more likely it is the owner's going to want a higher offer. And obviously, the less conditions, the more likely it is they're going to accept a lower offer. So where this lady that I was talking to didn't seem to understand, she was like, no, find out whether they're going to accept my condition first, and then I may consider putting in a higher offer. And I tried to explain to her the conditions and the offer are essentially the same thing, because if they don't know what price you're going to offer, they're not sure whether they're going to accept your condition or not, and they won't make a decision on whether they accept your condition if they don't know whether what your offer is. And so unfortunately, she didn't seem to understand the logic behind that. She's like, no, I want to know whether they're going to accept my condition first, but before I put in a revised offer. And I tried to explain to her, and she didn't seem to get it. So hopefully, you understand it out there, that it's really important, if you are going to put in an offer, it's really important that you explain what your conditions are. And likewise, if you want to know whether they're going to accept your condition, it's really dependent on what your actually offer is. So, and the thing to understand, this is actually a really good thing for you. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing in the sense that if you want to negotiate a better price, if you take some conditions off the property, off the purchase, then you're most likely going to get a better deal. So if it's cash unconditional, then you hope you're going to get a better deal than if it was, subject to finance or subject to the sale of your house or whatever. And you have to understand, if that's the situation, if they get a choice between you which is subject to terms and conditions, and someone else, which is cash unconditional, and they're offering the same amount of money, they're probably going to accept the person that's cash unconditional over you. That's one of my reasons why I'm a bit anti-auction, because auctions only allow people that are cash unconditional. And so the thing for me is, it's not up to me as the real estate agent to decide whose offer I'm willing to accept. It's up to the owner to decide whether they want to accept the offer. And the offer should be conditional on, what terms and conditions the people are willing to put in. So if the owner's in a situation where they're not necessarily in a hurry and they're happy to wait for the person to sell their property, or they're happy to wait to find out what their financial situation is so they can be subject to finance, or in this situation, might be subject to getting the tenant's financial details. We don't necessarily know whether that's something the owner's willing to accept, but having an auction process, you're excluding that person right from the start, because in an auction process, it has to be cash unconditional and we don't have any other choice. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Hopefully you can see how, from the seller's perspective, how it all makes sense. And also hopefully you can see how, from a buyer's perspective, you have an opportunity to get a better deal than you otherwise would if you can add some conditions, or likewise take some conditions off the sale of the property. So if you've liked what I had to say, then click on the like button. If you haven't liked it, still click on the like button anyway, because I really appreciate it. And if you've got a situation where you've managed to negotiate a really good deal, you might have taken off some conditions, you got a much better price, or likewise you might have added some conditions or extended the settlement period, something that actually you ended up offering a higher price to the owner, but in actual fact it ended up a much better deal for you because you added conditions to the contract, which allowed you a lot more flexibility, and the owner was happy to accept it, and for you and for the owner, it worked out a much better deal, even though you're actually paying more. So if you've got a situation like that, I'd be interested to hear about that one too. And if you've got something you'd like me to talk about in a future episode, then put a comment in the comment box. I'm happy to have a chat about that too. And I look forward to catching up with you guys again next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.